This is one of the best walk cycle references for people who are just starting out and want to understand how things work. This is just a nice slow motion reference. If you're using this for animation, it's not the best because it's slow motion. You never want to use slow motion reference as your core reference because your timing is going to be shot. It's not going to be correct. It's great for understanding mechanics because you can see all the small details. Don't use it as your main reference. It should be assisting you and allowing you to see extra details. In this case, this is what we want. We want to see the details. Now, with a walk, there's a lot of different elements, and we're going to stick with kind of the vanilla walk elements here. So for a walk, as many of you know, you have a few main key poses. You have your contact pose right here. The contact pose on a walk is typically a straight front leg. And in this case, she has a straight back leg, but in most cases, it's a bent back leg. The back leg would have a slight bend to it. The character is slightly leaning forward. And we then go from that to the down pose. The down pose is when the hips are at their very lowest. On the down pose, you will have the legs tend to bend. Once again, in this case, her legs are pretty straight. There's a lot of variation in walks. When we animate, we will tend to exaggerate that and bend the character down. So you'll have a bent front leg and a bent back leg. From the front view, let's actually go back to our contact pose here. The main things to keep in mind from the front view are the balance, the weight shifts. You'll notice that the hips favor, if you draw a straight line down from the center of the hips down, they favor the supporting leg, the back leg right there. And then on the down pose, right around here, they're starting to swing over onto the next foot right there. Now, from the down pose, we go to the passing pose. The passing pose is when the one leg is passing the other. And on this pose, you'll see the weight has shifted quite a bit. It's going over top of the new supporting foot right there. From the front, the character is leaning slightly forward and everything's pretty nice and linear. There's not like a hunch or anything like that. And the leg doesn't lift very high. You can see that the knee is just slightly forward. The foot, not too high off the ground. As we go through, from the front view, notice how the foot moves in an arc. It doesn't move just straight. You can see if you watch the heel, it's going in right here. It's getting closer to this line and then swoops through. So from there, we go to the up pose. The up pose is when the hips are at their highest. The character is leaning forward. The forward leg is skimming the ground as it swings ahead. And we've got that nice straight supporting leg with the heel slightly raising. This is the most common pitfall on a walk cycle I see students run into, is that they will raise this heel up to really push the up pose even higher. No, that is okay for a cartoony run, or cartoony walk, not for a vanilla walk. A vanilla walk is much more relaxed. So keep that low. Okay. Then from the up pose, we then go into the contact once again, and we get that nice straight leg and typically bent back leg. So that's the overall mechanics. I skipped a lot of it, but I don't want to spend too much time on the walk here. But those are the overall mechanics. We can see there's a lot of weight shifts side to side. The hips are favoring the supporting leg at all times. The feet tend to come in towards the center of the body. And from the side view, we have that very clear contact pose. The foot swings out, contacts. And the extreme forward position of that foot, each step, is that contact pose. It goes forward, 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 contact. So that is the general mechanics of a walk. Now, I'm just going to draw it in right here, super simply. So the main thing that we're going to look at is the contact pose for now. So for a walk, you have the one hip going forward, straight front leg, like that, back hip, there. The back leg, the upper part is typically straighter, and then you'll have a bend right there. And I should have put a floor first. That would give me an indication of how long to draw the legs. Ignore the big dip that they just missed. There we go. My legs are a little short there, so I'm just going to extend that. Okay. So we've got a contact for a walk. And this is pretty standard. There will be variations like we talked about. Sometimes it's a little straighter, sometimes it's more bent. But this is the typical. Now, oh, and this software, this is Clip Studio Paint. It's a great drawing software. I would highly recommend it for anyone who wants to draw digitally. I absolutely love it. So this is a walk. And for a run, the most common thing, so we're starting to go into the run now. The most common thing that I will see is that students will take everything that we just talked about on a walk and go, okay, that applies to a run. I've learned that this is how we as humans move forward. So a run is just more. You will have your contact pose where the hips are there. And let's actually make that a little lower there. So same thing, leg straight, but we all know that we kick up higher on a run. I'm just kind of using the cliches in my mind. I know what a run looks like. I've seen it before. So we're going to do this. There's a run. Haha. Great contact pose. And we, again, do the same mechanics. So the next pose, I should go over here. And I should have done the ground on a different layer. That would have been the smart thing to do. Let's onion skin this. There we go. Okay. So the next pose, we had the passing pose, which is going to be slightly higher, or sorry, the down pose first. So down pose on a walk, typically you get that bend in here as the foot starts to take the weight, bend in the back leg as the foot keeps pushing forward. So you get something like that. So the run, okay, it's the same thing. That foot is going to bend, and now the other foot is just going to come through something like this. Passing pose, and I apologize for the rough drawings. Whenever I draw and animate, I tend to do it a very, very rough pass. So the passing pose on a walk, we will have something like this. The back leg now passing the supporting leg. Something like that. Okay, the run has got to be the same thing. So this is going to now be straight, and we're going to get something like that. And so on and so forth. Well, actually, we're almost there, so might as well just do the up pose. Now, as I'm doing this, keep in mind, this is the assumption that I see a lot of students do. This is not the correct way to animate this. I do want to make that clear for anyone who's just jumped in. But now we get that up pose. And then students will often do like, okay, the run is going to be something like this. And then you cycle back to the contact there. So if we look at this, here we have the walk on the right. And this would be the typical mechanics for a walk. Now you'll notice it kind of pops because we're switching the cycle there. But we take that, and then you can see as we apply it to a run, it kind of works. Essentially all we've done is exaggerated the passing leg, but everything else kind of stays the same. It doesn't look different, and they will try to make the arms pump faster. That back leg is going more, or this passing leg is going more, but it doesn't ever look like a run. It looks weird and it feels broken. And this is because there are a lot of mechanics that are missing that a run needs to work correctly. The legs do not work the same way in a run. So let's actually take a look at some running reference and see what we can figure out. So here's some reference I found, and there's our run. Okay. Now, if we just look at the mechanics, the key poses of our run, how are they different? Well, the main thing is that on the contact poses, look at the leg. The leg is not reaching out forward. The leg is straight underneath. That lower leg, boop, vertical. This is the contact pose. What else is different? The contact pose is not contacting on the heel. It's contacting on the flat of the foot. Now, this is different. Some people run on their toes. Some people do run on the heel. But proper running form, a vanilla run, will contact on the center of the foot, at the ball of the foot typically. So our contact pose is vastly different. We don't have that strong straight line here with the foot reaching out. The reason? If you were to straighten out your leg like this and hit the ground, essentially think of all that forward momentum. You are running fast, forward momentum going through, and you stick out your leg straight and hit the ground at an angle like this. What's going to happen? You've essentially hit the brakes. Your heel will dig into the ground and your whole body is going to impact into your own knee, which is going to slow you down. That's very inefficient. That doesn't help you run in any meaningful way. Instead, if you land with your leg already bent and your foot underneath you, all of that forward momentum that you've got here is just going to keep transitioning right across over that leg and keep you going at a nice constant speed. So this is very, very important to keep in mind and to watch out for, that contact pose. Next, we have the down pose. For a lot of runs, the down pose, where the hips are the lowest, is also the passing pose. They are not separate. You go down as your leg is already passing the other one. So we can combine these together. The runs are faster. They're going to have less time, which we'll talk about timing in just a second here. But you can see the hips come down, the leg goes forward right here. Next thing we have is the up pose, which is right here. The up pose, both feet are off the ground. This is the other thing that runs have to have, and something that my run on the other one was missing completely. And I see a lot of students miss this. A run has to have both feet in the air. If your feet are not both in the air at any time in the run, it is not a run. It is a fast walk. To be considered a run, both feet have to be in the air. So up pose, both feet are in the air, and you can see the front leg starting to reach out here. Right there. Back leg, you get a nice extension and push right here. And then we go back into our contact pose there. Now you'll notice that on all of our key poses here, we don't really ever get a nice straight. And this is where, once again, I see students struggle because you're taught that we need straights. We need that visual contrast. A walk looks good because you get that nice straight leg as the character goes into the contact, it bends, and then as they push up going into passing and the up pose, nice straight leg to support them. Those are very important. And then you look at all of these and there's no straight leg throughout any of this. So Why not? Well, the straight legs happen between the key poses, the contacts down, passing up, all of those. You'll notice right here, the straight leg happens when the foot is still on the ground here, just before leaving. This is the nice straight leg. Not only is it a nice straight leg, it's a nice straight body. The whole body is leaning forward. You get that really nice, powerful push off right there. Now, the front leg, once again, we want that straight. But as we just saw, the contact pose is not straight. So how do you make a run look dynamic and interesting without getting that front leg straight? Well, it does straighten just before the contact. If we look at this here, look at that. Here is our straight leg. The difference between a run and a walk is that when you walk, you will tend to move your leg forward and it just keeps going forward until it hits the ground. It might slow down. Sometimes it might reverse a little bit, but in general, it's moving forward, 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 hits the ground. In a run, watch that foot. It moves backwards. From the extreme straight here to the contact here, it's gone back in comparison to the line of the body here. So it goes out and then back in. It's ready to absorb the shock. Essentially what we're doing when we're running is we're using our body to throw ourselves forward. We're using our legs to push ourselves and also to throw the weight forward, as well as our arms. So our arms are not just hanging there and doing nothing. They are pushing ourselves forward, throwing that weight and kind of giving more momentum. That passing leg is doing the same. It's picking up really high, swinging through, and then pushing forward before getting ready to catch the weight. Okay. So those are the main big differences in a walk versus a run for the legs. There's a lot of them. And there are even more smaller differences. So smaller differences include how high do the legs go? If ever you've been in any of my Q&As and streams and whatnot and talking about a walk, I always talk about how we're very lazy creatures and our feet barely leave the ground. It'll push up, you'll get an arc, and then it's like right close to the ground. A run is not like that. Look how high this leg is going. It's going above parallel right here. The knee is bending, that foot. It's almost like she's trying to kick her own butt right here, which is an exercise that runners will do to improve that kind of explosiveness, is doing high kicks and butt kicks. From there, as it goes through, look at how high she's bringing her knee here. It's quite high. We don't bring our knees that high up in a walk. It tends to be kind of down lower. And this will change depending on what type of run we're doing. And this is something I probably should have mentioned earlier on. But when you're looking at runs, there are so many types of runs. There's jogging. There's long distance running. There's medium running. There's sprinting. There's just all out like dashing. Every one of them is different and has different mechanics. For example, a sprint will have the leg that's going forward be more of a parallel here. It adding more power. It's more energy, so you can't run as long doing that, but you will end up running faster. There's different ways that your body will move, that your arms will move. For long distance running, you want to keep your hands very relaxed. With sprinting, you tend to flex more so that you can just use every muscle in your body to go as fast as possible. So when you're analyzing this, you need to make your own analysis. Don't just take what I'm saying here. Study your own reference that you find, because you might be doing a slightly different run that I'm doing here. I'm doing kind of a vanilla run. These are the general things that you will see in most runs. But if you're trying to go for a very specific type of run, you need to study. And the same goes for walks. So we go from there. And then let's see, what other things can I talk about here? I think for the leg mechanics, we'll leave that there. Now, let's talk about timing super quickly. So timing on a walk versus a run is, how to put this? Each one has basically a range of time that works pretty well. So for example, a walk will tend to be around 12 to 16 frames per step. So you take your foot off the ground to the next contact, or sorry, from one contact to the next contact. That's 12 to 16 frames. A run will be typically around 6 to 10 frames. Now, with that said, you can really do whatever you want. You could do a giant creature that has this big loping run, and each step is like 16 or even 24 frames. It's a giant. Or you could have a character that's just like running extremely quickly, and you could get down to like 3 or 4 frames per step. Same thing with a walk. You could have a character that's walking really quickly, maybe 6 frames per step, or super leisurely. But these are ranges for the common, natural, kind of vanilla range, a human range. So just keep that in mind. Now, while we're here, I do want to just draw in the proper running pose here. So this is the one we don't want, that running pose for the contact. The running pose we want for the contact is this. And I'm adding thighs on this one because he's running really far. He's been training. And then leg above parallel. So this is the contact pose for a run. Not that. But this is the one that you will almost always see students do. And from there, everything else starts to fall into place if you get this run incorrectly there. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that kind of gives an idea of where we can start to push things and make things better. Now, let's talk about the body a little bit. For a walk, if you watch the body, the upper body there, it really just counters what the hips are doing. If the hips, for example, here are angled where the right side is higher, the shoulders will do the opposite. That's pretty much it. It just does the opposite of what the hips are doing. If the hips rotate forward on one side, the shoulders will rotate forward on the other side. Simple. That's it. And for the most part, a run is similar. But there is kind of a key difference, especially if you're using proper form when running. And I believe it's this one, yeah. So if we look at this, you'll notice that as the hips angle this way, shoulders angle this way, same thing, contrapposto. As this leg is coming forward, this shoulder is coming forward, so you get that twist right there. This is tapering down this way, whereas this is tapering down this way. So you get that nice twist in the body. Great. But what's the difference here? What is going to make this feel like a run and not a walk? With a walk, our hips and our legs are driving the action, and our upper body is just kind of hanging out, trying to keep ourselves balanced. That's about it. Our arms can just be lazily on our side, not doing much. A run is active. The arms and upper chest are working to help push the hips and to give even more power. We talked about momentum earlier, but there's another element in here, which you can see very slightly, and we'll see if we can spot it in here. Let me get rid of these drawings for now. Don't need to see these. I'm just going to get in the way. Which is, so what we're looking at here is the twist of the body. If you're using most Maya rigs, this would be your rotate Y. Once again, on a walk, the rotate Y, the twist of the hips are just going to be doing their own thing, and they are influenced by the leg. If the leg moves forward, the rotate Y goes forward. If the leg moves back, the rotate Y goes back. That's pretty much it. But with a run, watch the angle of her body and her hips right here. That twist of the hips. Right now, this hip is further back. As she's running, this leg is going forward, and that hip is also going forward right there. That leg's still going forward. The hip is going forward right there. But then right here, it's very subtle. It's hard to see. But right here, her leg is still going forward, but now this hip is also going forward as well. You can see it if we watch kind of the pocket right there. See how that hip is starting to thrust forward before the contact pose. It's already starting to go around. And Sal, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So the hip is starting to rotate before the contact. It's not having the extremes at the contact. Why? Why is it doing that weird motion and leading the action like that? Well, that's because of the body. The body has a connection between the shoulder and the hip. Sympathetic action. It's the same concept that if I raise my arm like this shoulder drops down because this shoulder then, if I raise my arm, this shoulder goes up. As that goes up, my body wants to tweak that and help it reach up forward, which is going to drop that shoulder. Everything's attached. If we go lower, my spine is now curving, which would mean my hips are now curving and bending as well. So by raising my arm, I move my hips. This is what happens when we run. If I'm going to throw my arm forward here and throw the other one backwards, this is adding a giant twist this way. And essentially, as this shoulder here gets thrown back right there, it is stretching all the muscles across the body right through here, and everything is pulling that hip forward. So by throwing your shoulder back, you're pulling it through. Now, as you're running, you're not doing this and throwing your shoulders around like crazy. It is very tense. It's not like you're doing a ton of motion, but because of the tension in the muscles, they are going to affect each other. So this helps to make your run more efficient because you're letting your entire body help your legs move, essentially. Now, that is very good running technique right there, but it doesn't always have to be that way. So it's just a little thing to take note of. So with that, those are a lot of the main mechanics in a walk and run. Now, another one I guess I should mention is the arms. When you're doing a run, a lot of people will just have the arms doing this because this is what we see in a walk. You'll see a lot of sideways arm motion on a walk if characters are taking a nice leisurely stroll. When you're running, you don't want that. Running is like riding a bicycle. If you think of riding a bicycle very slowly, it's going to be very hard to stay in a straight line. You're going to be weaving all over the place. The faster you go, the straighter you're going to go. You're not going to be veering and twisting around a lot. A walk is the same way. As we walk, we can have more side to side. Our arms can just swing around. We get a lot of extra motion there, especially for more exaggerated walks. A run becomes straighter. You have less side to side on the hips, you have less side to side on the head, and you have less twist of the arms. The arms are going straight. They're just doing this. They're not going in and out. There will be some, because we do move in arcs, but you don't want your character doing this as they're running, because all of their energy is now going sideways instead of forward and back. Now, again, this is vanilla walk and vanilla run. If you're going for a very cartoony run, you can have the arms doing whatever you want, and they can just be all over craziness. That's half the fun of animation, is we can do whatever we want. But for vanilla, it's going to be much more forward back. So, see, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything here. I think that's the main elements right there. Now, In terms of details, which we will get to as we animate, you do want to pay attention to the details of the feet. The feet, because they are not landing flat, or I should say on the heel, they have to land kind of towards the middle of the foot. But that doesn't mean it has to be boring. It doesn't mean that foot just goes flat and then up, flat, up. That would be very boring. If you look at the details of the feet when people run, let's get it a little closer here. You'll notice that the foot is at an angle as it's going through the air. That's because the foot is lining up with the bone of the leg right there, and gets a nice angle right here. As the character lands, you can see they're landing on the ball of the foot, not the tip of the toes, and not on the heel. As it flattens out, we see that flatten right there. So we get that angle change. And then on top of that, because you're running and you've got so much momentum, watch the heel. See how the heel twists? It's twisting around this way, ever so slightly. And that twist continues as the character pushes off the ground. And the heel is now twisting up this way and then around. So we get this nice roll of the heel pushing up and over and through. And then as the foot leaves the ground, you get this nice kind of kick and flick. You can see it on this foot here. Look at that. Huge rotation right there. Now that's a little excessive, but that's something we could add in there. It avoids those feet just going to. That looks boring. One of the things I hate in my own animations, and sometimes if I'm not paying attention, it'll happen, is when the feet just end up being boring and just linear. Feet are there's so much you can do with feet and get all of these tiny little rotations that'll make the character feel so alive. And at least for me, the big reason that I like that is because the feet, for most shots, is the thing that connects your character to the world. It's a lot of time the only thing that is interacting with another solid object, especially if they're walking or running. They might not be holding anything or touching anything. So by getting good solid foot motion in a shot, you can really make it feel like the character is a part of the world and not just a rig sliding through the scene. The same thing goes with hands, with anything. As soon as you have an interaction, put some time to think of the details you can get in there to really make it feel like the character is in that environment and not just a rig interacting and just, on, off, done, that's it. Okay. So with that, that's pretty much our analysis of the walk versus the run. Now, there are a lot of other differences here. A lot of tiny little things, a lot of mechanics. One thing I would recommend, and this goes for everyone here, and just anyone in general, you just heard me talk all about this. Don't just take my word for it. What you should be doing, and this goes for any animation that you ever do, is if you are told, animate a run, for example, don't just go, okay, what do I know about that? Okay, start working. No, study. If you've never animated a run before, learn how to run. It's kind of weird because for most of us, we know how to run. We've been running since we were kids. But what does it actually entail? What are the mechanics behind it? So go to YouTube, watch a whole bunch of how to run videos. There's a lot of them. Look at marathon runners, sprinters. Figure out the exact type of run you want to go with. Learn the mechanics first. And this goes with anything. For example, when I was a student animation mentor, I had an assignment where I did a caber toss. Caber tosses are the Scottish games where they take basically a telephone pole and you have to toss it in the air and get it to flip. Cameron and I had never done a caber toss, but we had seen a few. And instead of just going, okay, we get it, we'll just throw something in the air and, get the overall motion. We took time and we learned the rules of the game, what's the goal of it, what's proper technique. We studied a whole bunch of YouTube videos on how to caber toss, how should you put your hands, one hand over the other, side by side, interlaced. Like, how do you do this? And when we did the caber toss assignment, I won't say it turned out great because it was when we were in class 2. So still very, very early in our animation careers. But it worked out. We got something that looked like a caber toss. It didn't look like someone just throwing a random object and hoping for the best. So you want to learn the mechanics of why and how, and from there you can then push and exaggerate and go with all sorts of things. And then you can make more of the silly runs or the silly walks, whatever it is. So, long soapbox moment there. But let's actually take our shot here and let's actually start bringing it into Maya. Now, before I do that, there was a question here about feedback. I will be trying to get to some feedback later on. If we have time. I want to try and get as much of the demo done here today, because the next demo I want to do is an exaggerated cartoony run, and I want to be able to get everything done here, so we can have time for the next one next week. So if we have time, definitely I'm happy to take a look. Let's see. Are you teaching as a teacher? Do you have courses on the internet? I do teach. I teach at Animation Mentor, which is the school that I also attended when I was a student, which is really cool. It's my favorite school because it just means a lot to me. So yeah, I do teach there, and I teach here on Twitch, which is more just kind of impromptu demos and stuff. I don't have any courses or anything like specifically just me. I teach at the school. But if you do have any questions, always feel free to ask. And let's see. There was another question. Did I cut my hair? Yes. My hair is much shorter than it was before. For anyone who is new to the stream, just 2 weeks ago, my hair was like down to here. You can see it in the previous videos. It's much, much shorter now. Let's see. And then there was another question, I think. Maybe not. Okay, cool. So if I did miss any questions, definitely feel free to let me know and repost the questions. But with that, let's jump into Maya. Now, for this Maya test, I want to try a new rig, which is one I've been wanting to test for a while, so I'm taking the opportunity. And this is the Sane rig. I probably butchered that name. And I'll give you the link right here if anyone wants to check it out. It's a really cool rig. I've used the previous rig, which is now I'm blanking on the name. The Reimu rig. And I really enjoyed it. I did a whole dance animation on stream using that rig. And this is their newest one. So I've been wanting to try this for a while, and we're going to end up using this for the run. Now, for the run, I don't want to deal with all of this extra dress and long sleeves and everything. This is just a mechanics test. I want to focus on the mechanics more than anything. So I actually took this and prepped an animation file with it. Just switched the clothing, this is all part of the rig, down to just the casual clothing. And I've also cleaned up the controls a little bit. By default, when you bring in a lot of rigs, they will have a lot of controls. So you can see this one has all sorts of different offset controls and whatnot. For the run, I'm not going to need these. So I just added them into display layer and hid them. If there's controls to actually turn them on and off, like within here, within the channel box, you can do that as well. But the display layer, quick and easy. The other thing that I did is I shortened her hair just so that we can focus more on the body mechanics and the hair isn't going to cover anything up that we want to focus on. So this is going to be the rig that we are using today. Now to get started here, let me actually just set our first key. I'm just going to take everything right here and then hit S to set a key. And that rig, can we find in some place? Yes, I posted the link just earlier. So the Mega Boo Boo Gumroad link, you can find the rig there. And it's $10, but their rigs are really well done. I love their rigs here. So we've got our first pose that we need to do. And the first pose is going to be typically the contact pose. That's what we typically start with. So let's just kind of get this in super quick. By default, feet are going to be much closer in when we run and walk. Now, when we walk, we can walk with our feet pretty much in line here. And Najim, thank you so much for the sub. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. He's almost 6 months. Man, thank you so much. So when we walk, we can walk with our feet quite in line. And you'll see this like with runway models or people walking on a tightrope. You get that really exaggerated motion right in there. With running, you can do that. And I have seen people run like that, basically running with their feet single file. The problem with that is it requires more side-to-side motion of the foot, which, as we talked about before, the more side-to-side motion you have in your body, the less forward motion you're getting. So in general, we want to minimize that when we're trying to get good form in a run. So I will bring them closer in, but I will try to avoid like lining them one right behind the other. So let's zoom in here. And I'm just going to get that foot, maybe something like that. Now, this is not the contact pose. I'm just kind of figuring out the width of the stride there. Now, I'm also going to rotate the feet out slightly because feet should pretty much never be parallel to each other. We can put our feet parallel in real life, but unless you're a machine, you're never going to get it absolutely parallel like a rig comes in with by default. So we want to add a little offset there. Let's see, the walker run, will you do in stepped or splined workflow? I'm going to be doing in splines, but I'm using a stepped workflow. So I'm still just focusing on the key poses. I'm just in splines as I'm doing it. Honestly, this really is just up to you. There's nothing wrong with either way. It's whatever you prefer. If you're starting out with animation, I highly recommend using a stepped workflow to start with, because it just simplifies things and makes it easier to understand what's going on. So, yeah. So let's see. For the run here, we've got the feet kind of in position. Now, what was that first pose? That first pose was leg slightly bent. We can see it right here. Forward with that bend there, and the back leg really high up. So I'm going to have to lower the hips here just a little bit. And I'm going to be animating this character on a treadmill, just because it's easier to see the character without them like running off screen here. But if you want to animate the character running forward, you can do that the same. It's really the same mechanics. So I'm going to bring that leg back just a little bit. I want that slightly back angle to the front of the leg. And then the other foot, I'm just going to raise up. Something like that. And to keep this simpler, let's see. Do I want that knee to move with that? Nah. So one thing I will do just to make this a little simpler for myself is I'll take the knee PV controls and switch the space to be root, which will basically make it so that they don't move with the feet. So now I can just move this foot wherever I want and the PV stays in place. This will just make it easier for me to keep those feet or those knees pointing forward and have less bouncing in them in this case. Okay, so foot angles back, and then we want that upper angle to that leg there. So something like this for now. This first pose is going to be rough. Don't try to get this super perfectly polished. We're just trying to get everything roughly in the correct position. So foot there. Okay. Now, the body. What's happening with the body? Well, one thing is that the body needs to lean forward. When you're running, you're not going to be perfectly straight up. Some people do run like that, but for most runs, there's a forward lean of the entire body. And that forward lean is basically just helping us get more momentum in the run. But it is not from the stomach. We are not bending our body forward like this. It is just tilting your entire body forward. Imagine just standing up. Let me actually draw this here. Imagine you've got a character just standing here. And then let's get the head in there. And as they're about to run, what they are not doing is this, where they bend forward like this with their body. We don't want that. No, you're not bending at the hips. What you're doing is you're taking your entire body and just leaning forward. Legs included. And then from there, this one got really thick thighs. From there, you just start moving your legs forward. So this is what we're aiming for when we lean the body forward. On the contact pose, we're not going to see it as clearly, but when we get to the push-off poses, that's when you get that nice big push-off here. Like that, with that foot pushing off the ground here. Nice straight line through the body. So, I'm just going to lean the character forward like that. The head tends to stay straight, so I'm just going to make sure I keep that there. The reason why we keep our head kind of straight as we're walking is it doesn't constrict our airways. If you're running like this, looking down at the ground, that's going to constrict your throat. If you look up, same thing. It's stretching your throat, stretching your airways. It's going to make it harder to breathe. Proper running form, head is level, maybe a slight tilt down so it's not boring in CG animation. Usually if something's perfectly horizontal or vertical, it looks boring. I'm going to have a little tilt down, but keeping that head up. Okay. Let's see, what else will we need here? Let's do the hips now. So the hips are going to be sympathetic with the legs. So I'm going to rotate that hip so this one is a little forward. And one thing I'm noticing right now is this rig has black pants, which is going to make it a little harder to see certain things. So maybe I can just put this in gray scale for now so we can see this a little bit easier, and actually maybe in this view and this view. Just so we can see that rotation a little bit more. Okay. What else is going to happen? Well, as the leg comes through, we're going to want the rotation of the hips in there. But let's actually look at that in our reference and see how that's happening before we just start throwing it in here on our first contact pose. The next thing we also want to do is bring the arms down. Like this. Now, whenever you're doing a run or any type of arm motion, it is very important to observe the rotation order of the arms. The rotation order is very, very important because this is what's going to make it either a breeze to animate or a gigantic nightmare where you want to tear out all your hair and just kick a hole through your computer. The reason rotation order is important, I've talked about this many times on stream, so there's videos on that, like if you wanted in-depth explanation. Rotation order basically determines how each rotation X, Y, and Z work together on a gimbal setup. A gimbal is when you have 3 axes working together to rotate one object. Now, by default, on a lot of rigs, if you use the default rotation order, it is great for a character gesturing. If a character is just doing this and gesturing and talking, great. Works wonderfully. I can open up my arms and do all of this kind of stuff, works great. The moment I start doing this and really throwing my rotations forward and back, not quite so good. And you can see this if I take the arm here, and by default, if I switch the rotation here to gimbal, which shows us the true rotations on the object, and rotate the arm forward, see how the x-axis, the red, starts to line up right there? This is what's called gimbal lock. The x and z axis now line up, which means that they're going to do the same motion. That's not good. We have lost an axis of motion. You can see that both of them are just doing this with the arm. And this is when you start getting those weird flips and just weirdness, because Maya is trying to make sense of what's happening with the curves, and in most cases it's going to do a terrible job because the math doesn't add up. So, how do we avoid that? Well, we change the rotation order. On most rigs, you would just take the control, open up your attribute editor, and let me find it here. It's usually right there. Here's your rotation order. Just switch that right there. On this rig, they added the rotation order right here, which I really love when rigs do that. Now, how do you determine the rotation order that you want? Well, essentially, the rotation that you use the most should either be first or last, and then the rotation order, the rotation axis that you use the least is going to be in the middle. So in this case, I would want probably, let's see, the character's running really quickly, so I'm going to definitely have a lot of this motion. In this case, that's the rotate Y. So I want a lot of rotate Y action happening right through here. Okay. I also need a lot of rotate Z because that arm has to come down here and line up to the side of the body. So already that's a big rotation right there. Rotate X, which is this way, we're not going to do a lot because it's a run. It's going to be mostly this. They're not going to be doing this as they're running. So rotate X is going to be my least used. Rotate Y, probably my most used. Z, second most. So if I look at the rotation order here, right now it's X, Y, Z. That's backwards from what I want. Most important should be first or last. Least important, always in the middle. So X should be in the middle. Let's try YXZ right there. Now, as I rotate the arm, you'll notice we rotate this down. Great, everything works just fine. Rotate the arm forward. Look at that. My axis is not getting any gimbal lock. Perfect. X, as I rotate this, now this is going to give me that gimbal lock. Whatever value or whichever axis is in the center, that's the one that's going to be giving you gimbal lock. So that's why it should be the one you use the least. That's fine. A little bit of adjustment there, I'm good. So with this, a little bit of prep, I am now ready to animate this arm without any issues and any gimbal lock. So a very important step to keep in mind whenever you're doing big exaggerated arm motions. For a walk, less important, but it can still help a lot. Okay. I'm going to take the clavicles here and just lower them down a little bit. When we run, a nice casual run, the shoulders should be relaxed. Let's see. I've missed this, but if you change it in Maya's attribute editor, does it change it universally over all controls or just the selected one? Just the selected one. The attribute editor here, this is the attribute editor for this one control right there. If I select another attribute, you'll see that's a different rotation order for that one. And if you want, you can key this in here as well. It's not going to show visually, but you can select that, right click, key selected if you want to change it partway through your animation. Now, the problem with changing it partway through the animation, it is going to be like switching from FK to IK. There's going to be a little snap where it switches sometimes. If you have Animbot, they have a tool that basically switches it and snaps it back into place for you, so you get nice seamless transitions. Beautiful tool. Okay. So we've got the shoulders relaxed here. Let's get the arms in place. arms, when you're running, typically stay at a 90-degree angle. So they're going to stay roughly in this range, and there's going to be a little elbow flexing, but they're not going to straighten out. They're going to stay around the 90-degree bend here. The other thing that I want to do super quickly is I'm going to pose out the hands. The reason I want to pose out the hands is if you don't pose out hands, any animation just tends to look horrible. It's not going to look good. So I want to make sure I get a nice appealing hand pose before I do anything else. And the hand pose is going to be pretty simple. It's just going to be a nice relaxed hand. So something like this. Closed, but just not a strong fist. Let's see. Euler filter can solve the problem and no need to change the rotation order? No. Euler filter has a misconception that a lot of people have. A lot of people think that Euler filter fixes gimbal lock. It doesn't. It doesn't do anything with gimbal lock. If you have gimbal lock, you're in trouble. Euler filter will help solve some of the issues that gimbal lock give you. But what Euler filter is made for is to fix Euler flips. So an Euler flip is, let's take I want something with a face that we can see. Let's take a pyramid here. Okay. So I'm just going to bring this. Actually, let me not do it in this animation file. I do have that other version of Maya here. So let's show this very quickly because it is a very good thing and it applies to runs and any animations really. So gimbal lock is when two axes line up and suddenly you lose a degree of motion. An Euler flip is, let's say we have our pyramid right here and I'm going to animate it kind of rotating forward here, and then it's going to keep rotating forward there, and then maybe it'll rotate back a little bit here and then come to a stop right there. And we get that nice little lean forward, lean back. But what if I accidentally took this pose here and I flipped it all the way around? If I'm looking at my keys, I still have the exact same animation. It looks perfect. But if I scrub through my animation now, whoop, something went wrong. That's an Euler flip. Essentially, the math in Maya, as you're moving controls, either you accidentally did it yourself or Maya, whichever program you're using, accidentally added this flip, which is what happens with gimbal. Because it's trying to figure out the math and things aren't lining up, it might just be adding these randomly. You get this flip. Now in the graph editor, you can see it right here. We have that nice rotation and then suddenly this big bump. And it screws up our entire animation. So if I now select this and go to curves, Euler filter right there. Some people pronounce it Euler, but it's pronounced Euler based off of a mathematician. You just click that. There you go. It looks through the entire curve and looks for any areas that essentially have flipped 360 or more degrees and brings everything back in. And now our animation is working again. So Euler filter is amazing. It works great, but it does not fix gimbal lock. The thing that will fix gimbal lock is either changing the rotation order or using two sets of controls instead of one control to animate that section. So you would have two shoulder controls instead of just one. And are there joints that regularly get gimbal lock issues to watch out for? Shoulders and IK wrists. The shoulders, FK shoulders, because you get a lot of different motion. You can either go up or down, forward, back, all the way around. You can twist the arm like that. That gets a lot of gimbal lock. So you have to be very careful which rotation order you use for your shot. IK wrists are the same. Because you've just got that one control and you can rotate in all directions, you can start to get a lot of gimbal lock if you're not careful there. And honestly, any control where you're using it in a way that is starting to line attributes up. So for example, with the head, usually you don't get it with the head because the character just goes up and down, maybe side to side. But if you're doing a character doing this kind of motion, just this really crazy motion, leaning forward, leaning back, side to side, you could start getting gimbal lock in there. So let's get back to that hand here. So I want to take all these fingers and let's just close them up here. Now we've done a lot of posing demos on stream here about hands. Make sure you're animating the metacarpals. Metacarpals are the bones in the palm themselves. You don't want to leave those alone. If you do, you're going to miss out on a huge chunk of appeal in your shot. As you're closing the fingers, they don't just go straight down, they point in towards the palm. More like that. So you can see how the fingers are all pointing in towards the center there. So something like that. I'm trying to do this fairly rough and quickly here. The other thing is don't let all the fingers just be flat together like this. You can see the line of the knuckles is very, very flat. So I'm going to offset the fingers a little bit. Try to make something a little bit more dynamic. I could go with the... I was actually just studying some animation with some friends earlier and just looking at anime, and there's this very like anime pose that you don't really see in real life too often, but it's the two middle fingers down, index and pinky up. You see that a lot in anime. Oh, maybe I could try it. Yeah, let's add that in just for the heck of it. Take that thumb. Typically the thumb rolls up at the end there. Not everyone has that, but you see that quite a bit, and it adds a little visual style. And I know this has nothing to do with running per se, but when you're animating, you want to make sure you get good appealing poses. And the hand is one of those areas where I see so many people just not put effort into. And it's a shame because that's some of the things that are going to really sell a shot more than anything else. If you can get a good appealing hand pose, you are going to really make your character just feel that much more alive. Okay. So I'm looking at the kind of arc I'm getting right through here. And then let's push the rotation of this here a little bit more. So let's see, do I want something like that? Maybe I'll bring that down a little bit. I'm getting nitpicky. Let's bring that thumb out just a little bit so we don't get too much pressure right there. Okay, so we've got a hand pose. Let's do the next one. Okay, now if I had Animbot active right now, I would just use the mirror tool. But I didn't actually remember to turn it on before the stream, so oops. Yeah, the tune material on this rig is wonderful. I really love this rig. And you'll notice that it's very blocky right now. If you want to, all you need to do is go... Let's see, let's bring back our status line here. I'll select the geometry and hit 3 on the keyboard to smooth it out. And now we get a little bit better geometry right in there. But we don't need to worry about that right now. So, same thing with this hand. Actually, I could use the master control here get the shape. But honestly, I really don't like master controls like that very often. This is one of my favorites. I will say that. You get a lot of really cool effects with the fingers just with that. The problem with master controls, especially when creating a pose, is it typically ends up being very generic. The other thing is that you then run into a lot of counter animation depending on how much hand motion you're doing. So for me, in most shots, unless there's a specific reason to use that master control, I would much more prefer to use the individual finger controls. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to do this one a little faster here. I don't want to get stuck on being super nitpicky, and this is an animation test. It's not supposed to be perfect. I say that now, and just watch in like 10 minutes. I'm going to be nitpicking on like the toes or something like that. Even though we don't see the toes, we're going to nitpick on them. Okay, and I'm just going to tighten that pinky up a little bit here. Okay, so there we go. You can see that it didn't take long, but now we've got the hands that actually look like they're not boring and ugly. So let's bring that arm back down, like so. We're getting close to our first pose. Let's actually go into our reference and analyze some stuff here. What other areas do we need to push here for our contact pose? So on the contact pose, we've got this arm back right there. The other arm coming forward slightly. This hip is leading the action with that leg going forward there. The knee is down below the hips right there for the passing leg. So it's kind of creating this curve right through here. We could exaggerate that to lean a little bit further back. Depends on how much we want to exaggerate that forward kick of the leg. On the front view, let's see, which leg are we doing here? Right leg contact. So the front view here, you can see the hips are down on that side, body is contrasting that motion, and the head is actually contrasting that as well, because the head is trying to stabilize itself right here. When we're walking, we're much more relaxed. We don't usually counter our body motion. When we're running, everything is active, so you will tend to see counter motions like that more often. Essentially, the more active you are, the more muscles will actually kick in. It's weird how that works. Now you'll notice that she has her hands straight. This is because she is doing more of a sprint slash, what's the right word I'm looking for? Like an athletic sports run. Whereas if you're doing just a run for running casually, your hands will tend to relax a little bit. So we're just kind of tweaking a few things right there. So let's get the hips in here. So hips, I'm going to use the hip control to do this. That way I can just get that nice whoop, motion right there. Body counters that. Whoop, like so. Let's get the arm here, back, out. This arm is going to be forward-ish. I need to add the twist. So with the hip, that hip is going to go forward on that side. We already added a little bit of that in there already. And then for the body, we get the opposite, like so. And you can see as soon as we start adding those, now the character is starting to feel more natural. Before we added those rotations, everything just felt stiff and boring and blech. Now that we've added those rotations, the pose is starting to come together. let's take the head here and just add that little bit of counter motion. And this, again, does not have to be perfect. We are essentially just trying to get everything roughly in place. And then from there, we can refine all of our work. A few other things I need to add in. Clavicles. Those will work with the shoulders, or sorry, with the arms to move the arm forward and back. Essentially, it's just sympathetic motion. If the arm is going slightly forward, clavicle is going slightly forward. Now, I should mention that additionally, when you're running, your clavicles, if you're using good form, will be pinched back. So just try this yourself. Take your shoulders, if you're relaxed, bring them back. Point them back there. Imagine pinching something behind your shoulders. What that's going to do is it's going to straighten your back. So if I slouch a little bit and then pull my shoulders back, see how my chest straightened right there? That makes it so that as you're running, you keep your body more stable and you don't end up slouching, which then makes it so it's easier to breathe because your lungs aren't being compressed and just keeps that body more stable. So you'll see a lot of runners, their shoulders are held back. So the default position is not neutral. The default position is slightly pulled. So we've got something like that. I think for now, this is a good starting point. The only thing I want to double check is the knees, because this foot is definitely in the wrong spot right there. Should be a little bit further out. Let's add some rotation to it here. And see how the foot isn't lining up. I'm going to push an exaggeration here. The line of the leg is not matching with the angle of the foot. When your foot's in the air, it tends to line up with the angle of the leg like that. Tends to. So we're going to get something like this and move this forward because once again, that knee should be slightly forward in a run. We could exaggerate that and we'll keep it closer to the reference for now, but be aware that we can change that. And the knee of the leg, do I want to bend it a little bit more? Yeah. Look at the line of the thigh right here. I'm getting so many lines. If she's got a really large quadriceps right there, very powerful. But if you look at just the line here, we're getting that. And in my shot, we're not exaggerating that as much. And one of the kind of mentalities that I have when I'm animating is if my shot isn't as exaggerated as my reference, why am I even animating it? I should always be trying to exaggerate things in my actual animation. Now, that doesn't always mean you have to push it more. Sometimes it does mean you can push it less. But in most cases, we want to push it more. Now, another thing that you can look at is where do the hips line up with the foot? So if we look at this, let's go here and erase some of this stuff here. Look at where the hips are in relation to the feet. It's slightly behind the heel. So we have that nice lean forward, hip right behind the heel there. So here, hips are probably a little too far back. So I'll just push that forward there and maybe exaggerate that forward lean just a tiny bit more. Something like that. Okay, so we've got our first pose in here. Yay! It took a while, but you want to make sure that you're understanding what it is you're animating before going in. Now, I will say I haven't added my side to side of the hips yet. Usually with side to side, when I'm doing something like this, I'll wait until I have a few more poses just so I can work with them and try to understand the flow right off the bat. Typically, for this, the hips would probably be favoring the supporting leg right here, the contact at this point. So, with that, let's go to the next pose. And once we have the first one, it should typically go faster. Now, let's look at our timing. I did do a 24 frames per second run here. So the timing of our run should be, we have our contact here. We have 2 frames and then we go into the down passing position. And then 4 frames to the up position, 2 frames to the contact. So it's 2, 4, 2. Contact, down passing, up contact, like that. And the whole run is 8 frames per step. So let's take that here. So I'm going to set a key. And then let me actually look at the questions because I did miss a few. Okay. Are there joints that, okay, answered that regularly get gimbal issues? There's criterion rotation in Blender that helps with gimbal locks. Is that available in Maya as well? No, unfortunately not. I'm used to using the regular axis. I haven't used quaternion rotations before. If it helps, definitely feel free to use it. But as long as you're aware of rotation axes, gimbal locks really aren't that common once you get used to them. See, my question is going from a standing still to a run, which is what's in my shot. So the big thing with standing still to a run is going to be the lean. You want your character to lean forward and then go into the run. That's going to be the main breakdown and important element for most of them. It can change. Sometimes you have a character who's just standing there and then their leg kicks out first or their arms start going first. Study your reference and push the character that you want to have in there. For kind of a vanilla motion, it's lean first and then you kind of fall into the run. So let's go into our next pose. So that's going to be 2 frames forward. So set a key here on everything. And I can hide the finger controls at this point. Just don't need to see more controls for no reason. I'm not going to be animating the fingers. Okay, so we have that. Next pose. So let's bring up our reference. Look at our down pose. So down passing, which is going to be right here. You can see the hips have now moved forward towards the toes. That leg is still bent lower than before. And the other knee is starting to pass and it's starting to become more parallel. The body is still leaning forward. So we now get this nice compression in here. And the arms are starting to move forward as well. Elbow just behind the body. Now these are, I'm just looking at the reference and kind of taking these global ideas. We can exaggerate, we can do more or less. It changes per run. It's something to observe as you're animating. So that foot should just be behind the hips there. Hips will come down. I'm going to exaggerate this. Foot comes forward. Whoop. With that leg parallel-ish. And actually, seeing that now, I can push that higher up here. So this is where, as you're animating, the more poses you put in, it's going to change things. Because I want this to be more parallel, I want this to have that change of, or I should say that contrast in posing. So I pushed it up higher so we can feel that angle in the front of that leg there compared to the flat angle there. Okay. So the hips are going to start to push forward here. Like that. And then, let's see. Got that. the arms, this arm was going forward, and then this arm was going back. I'm not going to worry too much about the elbows right now. I can layer those in later. And then the body is going to start rotating this way. So now we start getting that. Okay. So that's the side view pretty much. Now from the front view, let's actually take a look at what's happening. So front view. So from the contact position to the down pose, which is going to be, let's actually do it over here so we have some room to look at this. So we go contact right there. Down is going to be right around here. Down passing. So one thing I love to do is just go back and forth between those two poses and see what's changing. So we feel that hip rotating forward right there, arms going back. You can see I've definitely got my arms too close to the body. She's making sure that there's some negative space between it so she's not brushing her body on with every arm swing. So I can push those arms out a little bit more. The hips are dropping down a little bit on that pose. So you can feel that angle just changing a little bit right there before being pushed up here. And you really feel that change right in there. The whole side here is compressing right there. So I'm going to actually see. Just trying to think. I could maybe actually bring it up a little bit. Start getting that compression in the obliques right there. The shoulders drop a little bit more on this side. Slightly. Arm swings back. And then the hips. Let's look at the side to side of the hips. You'll notice that there's almost none. Now, what is happening when you run? Essentially, it's like jumping. You throw yourself forward and it's micro jumps. Push your leg forward, you get that extension off the ground. You're leaving the ground and you're just moving forward. So essentially what it is once you've pushed off here, she is pushing in this direction and then she'll keep going in that direction. That's the side to side until she lands here. And now she's switching. You get that push off with this leg going over this way, back and forth. So it's small jumps. So with that in mind here, if she is about to prepare for the jump, this is going to be kind of the anticipation. Hips are going to be a little bit more this way. We'll be able to refine it a little bit more as we get more poses in here. But I'm going to just start building that in there. Let's see. The hips start to extend this way a little bit. Shoulder. Was up on that side, down on that side. Okay. I'm going to push the hips up here a little bit more. The main reason is going to help put more weight into the character. You're going to feel that hip drop before it raises up. So we get something like that. Let's bring those arms out a little bit. Just keep that negative space. I can reposition the arms and get them a little bit more clean later. So we get something like that. The head is just going to have some micro motions. Honestly, I usually leave the head till the end because I could try to go, okay, I've got 2 frames right here. Okay, the head is going to maybe drag a little bit more. Oh, no, that's too much. Oh, is that too much? Too little? It's kind of a pain. The head's not going to be doing this as they run. So a lot of times I'm going to just try to get my main poses in first and then just quickly go into the graph editor and build in some subtle motion in there. For small things, I do not forget about it. Before I submit it for review to my director or whatnot, I will be putting it in there. But for this first just quick pass of putting in poses, I don't want to be in here looking at every tiny little nitpicky tiny thing when I could be focusing on the larger things and then working with the graph editor to push the smaller things super quickly and polish them up at the same time. So, yeah. Okay. So we've got that in there. Let's go to the next pose, which, as we said, was going to be 4 frames forward. So that's going to be frame 7. And then our next contact is going to be frame 9. Now, I could flip this pose here and mirror it, so we could get that contact in right away, but let's actually leave it for now. And let's actually get rid of that key. Oops. Okay, so frame 7. So this is going to be the up pose. Hips at their highest. Let's look at our reference. Now, as you're doing this, make sure that you are not just copying your reference. We are not trying to trace and rotoscope. We are trying to understand. That's the key difference here. If I'm just going, okay, I need to get exactly this angle and this angle and that angle. No, that's not going to get you anywhere. You're trying to understand what's happening. How can we incorporate that and then push it later on? So here we've got the leg going forward. The up position is going to be the leg quite high right there. The knee is driving forward. The leg here still angled back with the foot pretty much in line with the leg right there. The leg back here, nice and not fully straight. The full straight happens just before this. This is actually going to have a slight bend in the leg right here. And we get this nice clean curve right through the whole pose. Shoulders nice and forward, arm here really far back. On the 3/4 here, look for the highest point of the hips. Right around here. Watch what's happening with the hips. They're already starting to rotate forward by this point slightly. So we want to make sure we get that in there. The body is almost at its maximum rotation right there. The feet, nice and angled in line with the foot there. The toes are pointing out here, which is nice and interesting. That's a detail I want to put in there. So let's just quickly get that in here. So the hips are going to be up at their highest. That leg goes back. And I'm just following the line of the body here. And I want that nice push right through there. But legs slightly bent. This is not the full extension right here. The other leg, and actually, while I've got this here, let's rotate those toes out slightly. Okay. Next leg. It's going forward, but those legs still angled back. What this does, by keeping the the link to, or sorry, the angle of the legs back here, it makes it feel faster. If this is kind of flat here, it slows it down. We've got that horizontal line. And no, I did not post the link to the reference. That's a good point. Let's see it. Let me find that right away here because I do want to share it. It's got lots of good information on running too. I just need to open up my history here. Where are you? That's not it. Oh, I think it's on my other account. Okay. Do I have my other account here? I do not. Oh, I know. I have my other account here. The joy of having two computers. I have one for work, and for some reason I did all my research on the work one. So gotta open that one up. Here it is. Okay, there we go. If anyone wants to check out the reference that I'm using, you can find the link there. It's also got a lot of good information on runs, which is really fun. So let's go back to this. Also, hi A to the J. Nice to see you again. So once again, nice high angle there on the upper leg, angled back here. One thing I don't want to do is have parallel lines between both legs. So for example, if I do this, see how they're starting to become parallel, the upper leg to the lower leg of the other leg? That's a lot of leg in one sentence. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try to bring that in. The ankle feels broken here because it's not lined up to the leg above it. So we'll push that. My side to side of the feet, I haven't really been doing anything with right now. That's fine. I can put that in as I get the poses refined right through here. Okay, so something like that. I almost feel like I can push this further back. Okay. So we've got that. Definitely needs more work, especially on the front. The hips are going to be rotated up the other way, because as you're kicking your leg up, you're not going to be doing a lazy walk. You're going to be pushing up and throwing your leg up, and your hips are going to be helping with that. Now, we had said before that the hips are also going to be starting to change and rotate forward right here as well. We want to get that in there. For the chest, this is going to be the most extreme, or close to the most extreme rotation in the body there. So I'm going to push that quite a bit here. And then the arms, really get them pumping through there. Now, just to double check, let's see how far that is. Forward arm, you'll notice that she's not throwing her arm super far forward. It's actually coming forward and stopping. Once again, the reason for this is that as you're running, you're not trying to throw your arms around. You're just building that momentum. Having it just swing forward way up, it's not going to help you. So we're going to get something like this in here. I am not worried about the elbows right now. I can build those in later. And once again, like I was saying, by ignoring certain things, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to animate them. It just means that I don't need to animate them right now. I can focus on other elements and get those in place first, and then add in the subtle stuff afterwards when it's easier to see how they'll work. This way I'm working smarter and I don't have to try and do all this little stuff. But I am still going to try and get that in before the final submission. Okay, so we get something like this. Character goes up. And then we need our next contact frame, which is going to be here on frame 9. Let's set a key. And I could recreate it, or I'm just going to use Studio Library here and create a mirror pose. So let's go into custom here. Let's do a mirror table. And I want it to be YZ mirror. And let's see, what are the controls named? L underscore R underscore. So I just have to have my controls look for these, and it'll find those for me. And actually, let's make sure it's underscore underscore. I might change some control names. Okay, so underscore underscore. I'm just going to double check. So actually, I should explain what I'm doing here. So with Studio Library, which is a free plugin, you can create what's called a mirror table, which allows you to mirror your animation from one side to the other. And all you need to do is set the name convention for the left and right controls. So for example, you can see here, the FK arm is underscore right underscore. Underscore left underscore. So if I find these, we can essentially just create this and create a mirror. Now, one thing I'm worried about here, there we go, it's those hair options, was I didn't have the same amount of controls on each side there. That was just some hair options in here causing some issues. So let's save that and let's call this, let's name it after the rig. And I don't need to capture a thumbnail for this. Right there. Now, I'm going to go to my next pose right here. And let's mirror it. Now, the thing with mirroring is it's not going to swap the entire pose for me, typically. So let's just swap everything. And just for the selected range, which is this one frame. Boop, like that. Now, did everything work correctly for me? Actually, it looks like it did. Perfect. So now we've got the other contact. And actually, I forgot to set a key on the contact and copy it over. So undo. I just flipped the mid-air pose. So I want to copy frame 1 to frame 9. Okay. Now I can flip it. And there we go. There we go. We've got the pose flipped over. And we can now just copy our other keys. 11 to 15. And then 1 to 17. And I can just start flipping everything. Okay, did I do that right? This should be... It's not quite right. Let's see, let me double check here. So from 1 to frame 9, that's the first step. Something that helps with this is using Maya's bookmark tools to just mark which step is which. So from 9 to 17, that's our next step. Okay. So we've got contact, down passing, up, next contact right there. So contact is good. Now our down passing pose doesn't seem... Oh no, it's good. Okay, and then our up is good. Okay, so we've got this, and as you can see, it's a mess. Essentially, my side to side, which I wasn't really paying attention to too much, is a mess. And that's fine, because now all I have to do is look at my graph editor. That's my translate X. And we go, you can see that's the area right there that's causing the issue. We've got our contact. The hips go down. They push forward. Once again, that jump. The character is pushing off of this leg, going screen left in this case. As they land, they need to keep going in that direction right there, because they've just touched the ground there. And then on the down pose, probably still go a little bit more, slowing down before jumping off the other way. So there we go. And then from here, where's our contact? Right here. I want to make sure I take that value, paste it onto the first and last key, and actually reverse it. There we go. And then back the other way there. So let's see, contact down, push up. On the up pose, we get that jump. Up right there, which is going to be here. So already that's now working better. And you can see that that was a lot easier to do right there than to try and figure out all of this opposing just on one pose and just having that one pose. Now the big thing that I'm also seeing is my rotation of the hips is a little off. So my rotate Z of the hips is a little weird. See how it's kind of getting that bump right in there? This is too high right here. And then the contact needs to be a little bit more like that before it drops and then pushes off. And this is once again more like that. So now I've got the hips working better. And we've got our blocking for the run. Is it perfect? No, not at all. It needs a lot more work, but it's there. So if we just, I'm not going to scrub through, but if I frame through here, it's starting to feel like a run. And the big thing that's helping with this is that front leg not being overextended. Weirdly enough, this is what's going to make it feel more like a proper run. Now, the other issue here is that we're missing the extensions. We're missing the back extension where the leg is straight and pushing off the ground, driving forward. And we're missing the front extension before the leg comes back. Right now, it just looks like the leg goes forward and then just straight down. Right there. So before going too far with this, I would want to probably add those breakdowns in, at least on the legs, to help describe that motion. But everything else is working pretty well. So let's actually take this run here. I'm just going to make sure I cycle my curves. So curves. My graph editor, curves, post-infinity, cycle with offset, curves, pre-infinity, cycle with offset. Let's save. Thanks for the reminder, everyone. I keep forgetting to drink, and I'm glad that Hopefully everyone else is taking a sip too. Now, our animation layers taught in AM. There is the video that A to the J showed for animation layers. Animation layers aren't specifically taught in the course because you're not always going to have animation layers. It's not something that is available in every single piece of software, but there are additional resources that do cover it. And animation layers are really cool. I would definitely check out Nicole Hare's animation layers demo. Nicole Hare, for anyone who doesn't know, is an amazing animator. She was one of my mentors. I've had her in 2 of the classes I took, and she is amazing. She is a Maya genius. Like, she makes Maya just bend to her will. It is amazing to see. So we've got our curves here. Everything's pretty much in place. At this point, let's see, what do I need to do? I think the big thing I can do right now is just start refining certain things. And let's actually just hit play and see how it looks in splines. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, look at that. It's wonderful. I should actually play blast this just so we can see what happened, where it's going to go from here. So let me save this. I'm going to play blast a running demo. So this can be first spline side. And we don't need to do 120 frames. Let's just do our cycle, which is going to be, well, yeah, we'll do 16 frames. Don't need to make it too long. Okay. Actually, I might want to do a full other step. So that would be frame that to 17, which would be 34. I love Undertale music. There we go. Now, whenever you're doing a cycle, don't play blast the full range. So you see here from frame 1 where we have our contact pose. It goes through, and then on the last frame, frame 33, it's the contact pose again. Don't do that when you're play blasting a cycle. Play blast it to the frame before there. Because now when you play back your animation in any software, it's going to loop correctly. Otherwise, when it hits the end of the play blast range, it's going to cycle that first frame twice, or that contact pose twice. And you're going to get a slight hitch in your cycle. So in this case, my whole range is 32 from contact to contact. I'm going to go, 33. I'm going to go to 32. I hope that made sense. My brain was on many things at once. Okay. So we've got our wonderful run right there. Look at that. Oh, isn't it amazing? The up and down is just straight linear motion. Let's play blast from the front as well. And I should actually make sure that I turn on my resolution gate here. Frame this correctly, because that would have been way too far. Okay, so we'll play blast that. And this is going to be front. And body is not working. Like, look at that. Ugh. So bad. But that's where the refining comes in. So with this, we're now ready to start refining our walk. Or run, I should say. To do this, there's a lot of different ways we can do it. We can add a lot more breakdowns. We could just go into the graph editor, clean those up. At this point, it's kind of up to you what you prefer, what your workflow is. For me, because I don't really want to add a ton of keys in here and have everything animated on ones, I'm going to just put keys on certain areas where I need them to be. So this is what I would consider kind of my first pass blocking, just the main keys. At this point, I'm kind of starting to go into splining. And I'm kind of mixing the two together. That way I can refine things more easily, more quickly. So let's start with, let's say the hips, because the hips are going to determine a lot of the angles for the legs, all of that stuff. So for the hips, we'll start with our up and down. The big thing I want to do is make sure that my cycle loops correctly right there. Nice smooth cycle. Now as the hips come down, we get a contact pose into the down. I think I could maybe push it a little bit more, a little lower. And then it goes up, and right here, this is where we're feeling that kind of blandness. See how the up, as it goes up and then down, the curve just looks kind of the same on both sides. That's not really interesting to look at. And it makes everything kind of feel flat. So I want to push more hang time. As the character jumps into the air, they should hang up through the air like a bouncing ball. Everything is a bouncing ball. So I could do this in a few different ways. I could use weighted tangents on the curves here to stretch out that top tangent. Or in this case, I'm just going to add some extra keys and put that in myself. So just pushing the hang time there. I'm going to add an extra key in the middle here as well. And just kind of add an extra little push off here. So it holds a little bit more at the bottom. And then we get a nice jump up there. So something like this. Starting to shape those curves a little bit more. Okay. How does that feel? A little bit better. But notice how this is going to be tricky because we're trying to focus on just certain small elements. I'm trying not to look at the legs. I'm trying not to look at the body. I'm just looking at the up and down of the hips. It still feels a little linear. Like it's just going up, down, up, down, up, down. I'm not really feeling those moments where it goes up, holds, down, holds. So I want to exaggerate that just a little bit more. I want to get that feel of variety in there. So I'm going to try, let's see. The character goes down. Maybe we make this a little bit more explosive here. Right through there. See how that feels. As it comes down here, it's plateauing right there. I don't want to plateau. Always try to avoid plateauing things as much as you can. Okay. So that should be a little bit more interesting. Yeah, already that helps quite a bit more. Now there's a little extra hang time. There's a little bit of that hold near the top. Now I can refine that a little bit more as we go, but for now, I think that works pretty well. Now for my cog, that's the main mover. Really, all I have for that is the up and down. That's it. There's nothing else going in through there. That's fine. Now, if I wanted to, I could add a little variation forward and back. Just a tiny bit. This will depend on what you're animating and what you're animating for. If this is just a natural type of run, there will be a slight push forward. Essentially, as the character lunges forward right here, the character is going to move slightly more forward. Right there. Let's exaggerate that. So on the up pose, it'll be slightly more forward. As it lands and goes into the contact, and down it'll slow down because they've hit the ground, and then speed back up again. So something like this. So if you watch the hips now, there's that little bit of forward back in there. I could layer that in just a little bit. Okay. And here we get that extension. Let's add a key right here just to help us push this curve so it's not linear. So something along those lines. So that just gives us a little extra motion in there, just to help add a little extra detail. Let's see. If you want to show it more energetic, you mean the run? You would just make things bigger, exaggerate. The timing could be faster, the poses could be more. You could push the spacing to be a little bit more. There's a lot of different ways to make it more energetic. And what's the difference between add keys and adjust weighted tangent, and which way is the best? Let's see, between add keys and adjusting weighted tangents. Okay, so adding keys versus setting keys. That's a very good question. So adding keys, or let me put it this way, setting keys is by hitting S on the keyboard. And you just go where you want and hit S, you'll set a key. Adding a key is in the graph editor. You hold, or technically it's called inserting a key. Hold down the I key on your keyboard, and then you can middle mouse click on your key on the curve, and it'll add a key. The main difference is that setting a key, you have to be on a specific frame. So I have to be on frame 2 here. I hit S, I set a key, it puts it in. Inserting a key, I can do that wherever. I just middle mouse click and I can just go along and add keys wherever I want, insert them. The other thing that is different is that setting a key does not maintain the relationship of your tangents. So what I mean by this is, let's say I create a custom tangent right here. So like that. I make this and I shape it exactly how I want. If I hit S to set a key, notice how it creates that little wiggle right there, undo, hit S, set a key. It changed the shape of the curve. Because when you're setting a key, it's just putting a key in there and ignoring everything else you did, because it assumes you don't want that touched. I'm not going to touch that. I'll just put another key here. And that's okay, but it ends up messing up your curve a lot of the time. So once you start getting into the polish phase of animation and really refining your curves, you want to use insert key. If I do that, you'll notice my curve, and let's see here. For some reason it's changing here. Oh yeah, I changed my settings. Not insert. Like that. Now it's not changing whatsoever. So hold insert, doop, stays exactly the same. And the curve does not change. Now that is the default behavior and what I used to use quite often. Nowadays I tend to turn that off. And it acts more like setting keys. So you'll see the curve changes a little bit. The main benefit of that is that you're not... Well, let me show it this way. If I reset my tangents so that they're default auto tangents, you see how the key symbol has a little hole in the middle? That means that they haven't been changed. If I insert a key by default, it'll set those so now they are solid keys, which means that those tangents have been set and they will not change now. If I adjust this key over here, you'll see that this one doesn't adjust whatsoever. Whereas normally, it should adjust on its own like that. So by changing this option right here, you're basically telling Maya to either keep the tangents free, and they will just stay in auto tangents or linear or whatever, or lock them down. And personally, I kind of like having them stay in their previous state. It just gives me a little bit more control. At least from the way I like to animate. I hope that all made sense. And then weighted tangents is essentially being able to stretch the tangents and shape them using the tangent handles. Right now, I'm using non-weighted tangents, which basically means that as I'm moving them, I can only rotate the tangents. If I switch this, so let's take my entire curve here and go to weighted tangents. So curves, weighted tangents, and then I will free the tangent weights right here. Now I can stretch these and shape them however I want. And honestly, that's the big difference, is how much control do you want on your tangent handles. Some people love being able to stretch these out. And honestly, that's what I typically use. I just reset Maya's preferences and they went back to the default. So I've been using non-weighted tangents. Is really whatever you want. The only thing I will say is don't rely heavily on weighted tangents to shape your curves. Because if you accidentally go, oops, hit auto tangents, all your shaping is gone. So once you've shaped your curve, insert a key, and then this is where you definitely want to have the insert tool set to preserve tangent type off. Because now I can insert a key, and there's my exact curve, exactly how I want it. So let's take a look here. Shape that just a little bit more. And yeah, there we go. So if only adjusting tangents and not inserting keys, don't you risk losing the curve shape? Yeah, just like I said. So you want to insert a key after you've shaped it. That way you don't lose the shapes. So with that, okay, we've got that here. Let's go into the next area. So translate X of the hips. So this is the side to side motion. I definitely want to clean this up. Actually, did I just set a key? I did. I don't want that key on frame 2. There we go. So let's look at our translate X, our side to side motion. Right now, what I want is as the character lands, they need to take the weight, hit into the change of direction, and then push off. How do you insert a key? You hit the I key. So hold down the I as in insert. And then middle mouse click on the curve. Okay. So the character's coming down. And hey, iCart, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I love this song. So they're landing, they're catching their weight, so they're going to start slowing down. From there, they push off the ground and are essentially jumping to the next leg. So goes through, over to the side, and then here, I don't want them to slow down yet. Let's see. Just looking at my other curves, making sure everything is where I want it to be. Okay, perfect. So I don't want them to slow down too soon right here. So I'm going to make sure that this is essentially, it's almost linear right here. And let's add another key right here to help shape this a little bit more. So it's going to ease out here a little bit. They're pushing off. And then from there, it's a linear curve. Right through to the next landing. Right through there. Nice and straight. Linear curve. From there, they'll slow down. as they catch their weight there. So there we go. We get a nice clean motion right through there. And I feel like this could be pushed a little bit more here and ease in a little bit more there. So same thing here. Let's add another key right there to help shape things. And right into the contact, we want that to be linear. Something like that. And actually, let's ease that out a little bit more. There we go. Make sure my first and last key are the same. Somehow they got changed a little bit, so there we go. Otherwise, I would get an offset and my whole cycle would be ruined. Okay. So we've got that. And let's take another control here. Okay, good. So now we have that motion. Is it perfect? No. There's definitely more rotation and translation I want to get in there on that hip. Or sorry, not rotation, but just translation. But I'm going to wait until I start rotating the hips, because that hip motion is going to affect that side-to-side motion. If I'm not careful, I'm going to start running into a situation where I'm counter-animating things and I'm looking at the wrong elements. So I'm going to try to ignore it for now. So let's actually go from the hips, or from the cog to the hip control. And then from there, we're going to go down to the legs. So for the hips, we're going to do this really rough and quick because we don't want to do anything super polishy. The legs are going to change a lot of things here. So let's start with our rotate Y. That's the forward back here of the hips. There really shouldn't be any. So I'm just going to zero this out. I can layer that in later, but all those rotations just came from me moving the hips around. So I'm just going to get rid of them. Now, let's start with our rotate. Let's do the X because it's definitely messed up. So the X in this case is the twist this way on the rig. Now, as we go through, we have the contact here. It pushes through, the legs go forward right there. Good. As it goes through, we get to the extension pose right here, which is going to be very nice. And then on the up pose, the hips need to be changing direction again. They need to reverse themselves and go back the other way. They're starting to lead, not on the contact pose, but on the up pose. So we're going to be shaping these curves quite a bit here. This still needs to be quite a bit more forward right there. And let's actually go here. And then on the up pose, or the extension pose here, let's just exaggerate that there. Let's see. Nice quiet song for an energetic run. Okay. So we've got that. Let's see how that range is feeling right there. So it goes forward, starts to come forward right here. Then this is going to have to start coming much more forward through there. We can exaggerate that. Ease in. This is where Animbot would come in really handy with the ease in, ease out tool. I could very quickly just go just a few sliders and everything's eased in, eased out really nicely through that. But I wanted to show this without the use of any plugins. Okay. So we've got something more like this now. And hey, Blaze, thank you so much for the gift. Oh, thank you so much. And I saw the other question there. I'll get to it in just a second here. So let's see how that feels with the rotations. Yeah, definitely much smoother now. A little over the top. You can see it right here. Like that hip is just twisting. She would snap her spine right through there. So at that point, all I need to do is take my curve and scale it down to a more natural range of motion. But I've still got the whole feeling in there. I feel like I could still push this and exaggerate a little bit more. I tend to try to favor the exaggeration as much as I can. Now, one thing I'm feeling up. Okay, yeah, this pose is out of place. It needs to be here. I was wondering, the timing felt a little off. There we go, that's better. Okay. So now we've got the rotation, the twist right in there. And let's see. I have a client who often asks for changes in a shot. I need to make the animation more compact. So change the timing. What do I do to make those keys and compress them? And they're left with decimals. Okay, yeah. So you just scale your keys. So I can do that here. Scale them down. You'll notice that they're on decimal frames now. So for example, 12.74. Just right click on your timeline and hit snap. And you're done. So that's pretty much it. If you have too many keys, you might have to delete them. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just snap them there. If you're retiming in the graph editor here, for example, scaling them up and down this way, it would be the same thing. So you just make sure to select it in the timeline here, right click, snap, and that would get you back into position there. Okay, so let's take a look at our rotate Z. So that's going to be the side to side, and you can see it's really messed up here. And this is a typical thing for me. Like when I'm animating in that first pass, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to get everything smooth and whatnot. You'll notice a lot of times that the curves are a mess. And just to kind of show this, I'm going to buffer this curve, which is essentially going to save a backup of it, and we'll be able to see it. Actually, let me do that for all the curves, just so we have a comparison. Okay, so wrong control there. So the rotate Z, you'll notice that it's kind of messy right now, but that's fine. Let's see, show for curves. There we go. I don't mind that it's all messy because I was just putting in super quick. Now I can go in and think through the motion as I'm scrubbing through. What's going to happen? She's landing on that hip. I want to see the weight drop down in there. From there, she pushes off, and that leg is driving forward right in there. So this is good. I want this to happen right here. From there, we reach that peak, and it should really just plateau at this point. Something like this. So we could exaggerate it just a little bit more right through there. So pushing up, ease through. Let's actually exaggerate it this way here. And it plateaus. And then as she lands, there's that other hit right there. And I could even push this more so that we get that fast motion right there and then eases in again. So that's going to help sell that impact of the hip, essentially hitting the ground right there. Or as the leg catches all the weight, we get that nice strong weight shift in there. So let's do that again here. Plateau there just a little bit. Right through there, and then a nice strong hit. And if I wanted to, I could make that even stronger here and push that down like so. And then let's ease that out a little bit more. So something like that. So I had a very basic curve that now I went through and I refined to something that I wanted. Now I feel like maybe the hips are rotating a little too much right there. Oops. So I might tone these down, this whole curve down a little bit. And usually what I'll do is just go to the most extreme rotation right there and then bring it down to where I want it to be. Maybe somewhere around there. There we go. So we've got that. So we've cleaned up our rotate X and our rotate Y. So the hips should be done for now. Is it actually done? No. We're going to be coming back here and doing a bunch of different tweaks as we go. But for now, it's at a good place. Let's see how it feels there. Yeah, not bad. Now, what's happening right now that's making it really feel bland is that the legs just aren't working. So let's get those feet working a little bit better here. And I'm just going to do a quick pass to get the arcs working, and then we can add in some extra detail in the feet right in here. So as this foot comes up, or as it's on the ground, the big thing to keep in mind is because I am doing a treadmill run, I need this foot to stay linear the whole time it's moving. So right up until this point, this is the frame where it's going to be leaving the ground, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not letting it rotate up. I need to use the foot control here and push it off the ground here on those toes. Let's get that in there. Make sure I key all that. So we're going from there, pushing off the ground. Let's get that extension here. You'll notice it really changes that foot there. And that's really what's going to sell our arc as we go through. So we go through here. Contact. It's frame 1. Then we go back to the push off here. Now let's actually just look at the push off in our reference. It's always good to double check. You'll notice right there, nice straight right through the whole body, toes kind of pointed forward there. So I think I could push the foot a little less. Let's bring it back to the point where we get a nice straight right in there. Okay. So something like that. Now to make sure that the foot actually works, between these points, it needs to be linear. So this is actually going to have to go back here. Either that or make the stride length a little wider by bringing the contact forward. a little bit. But either way, I need that straight linear line right there. If you're doing a treadmill walk and your foot is not on a linear line right there, it's gonna not work correctly when you have it move forward. So from there, the foot goes up into the air. It's gonna basically just pop off the ground. If we look at this here, you can see just pop off in a nice backwards arc there. So we're going up to this point over here. That's our next contact. So I'm just going to see, we're going from down and 3 up. Pose was here. Probably push this a little higher up there. So I'm just going to set a key on frame 6 here and just have it drag up. Let's get rid of any motion on the pivot control and just get that nice push up and round out that arc. So we get that. Now from the front view, it's still moving perfectly straight. I'm going to add a arc to that, but I'll do that in the graph editor. It'll be a little easier. Now as it comes through here, we're kind of going up to the top and then we're missing the extension here. Let's get that in place. So we've got our contact here. 2 frames before the contact, we have our up pose. And then right before the contact, let's actually look at this here. You have that extension, then contact. So here's our up, it extends, then we get that nice contact right there. So let's do that in here. So just before the contact, that foot is going to be more out here. So we get that and then back like so. And we could probably bring this contact just a little bit more forward. But you see how it comes backwards as it touches the ground. Like that. Okay. From here, let's just take this foot and do a quick cleanup pass on the arcs. As it goes through the air, it's going to be very quick. So it pushes up. It should move a little faster right here and then ease into the top. As it comes through here, it's kind of plateauing and then is losing a little bit of the arc there. I'm going to try and smooth that out just a little bit right here. And then as it comes through here, let's just push that arc through a little bit more. So we get that nice round and then swooping through and down a little bit more. And then here's our up pose, down. I think maybe this could be a little lower. In general, I think maybe my up pose is a little too up. It's a very bouncy run. So to fix that, I can just take my translate Ys. Then on the up pose, just bring that down. let's ignore that for now, because I am running out of time here. I've only got about 30 minutes left. I was expecting to get a little bit more done, but explaining tends to take time. Who would have guessed? So I'm just going to bring this foot forward here. Now we get the nice extension, land. Let's bring that contact forward right here. And then as it goes through to the push off, which is going to be right here. I love this song. We then push the foot forward, roll it onto the toes. Actually, let me double check something. Okay, yeah, that's correct. Okay. So it's going over, rolling up to the tip of the toes right here. Maybe a little higher. Yeah, that's good. And then leaving the ground right there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the arc of the heel. Definitely needs to be a little bit more tweaked there. And just Oni, hey, thank you so much for the sub. Oh, thank you so much. 17 months. Oh, and take care. Thanks for dropping by. Okay. Straight, bend, arc forward. Okay. So we've got that going in here. Let's see, how does it feel? Not bad. Definitely need to push my translate Y on this. Well, actually, let me do the translate Z first, because that's going to be really important that I get that right. Because these need to all be linear. Okay. And then we can refine this just a little bit here. Something like that. Oops. Make sure that ease in, ease out is actually working there. That'll help. There we go. So we've got the feet roughly working now. Is it great? No. One thing that is happening right now, and this is the difference between kind of a more natural run and more of a stylistic run, which tends to look better in animation, is the feet are just kind of evenly cycling. It's kind of just doing this. Forward, forward, forward. Which is what happens in real life, because we want to keep moving. If we're stopping at any point, it tends to lose momentum. But what tends to feel better is if we have the legs go forward, hold, forward, hold, versus just kind of going back and forth, back and forth. So that is something that I'd be able to push a little bit more as I stylize it. For now, this is working pretty good. The up and down is definitely, I feel, a little too high. It makes the character feel a little bouncy. So I would adjust that a little bit. I'm not going to worry about that again right now because I want to get to a few other things and show a few other things. Let's see. Could you explain to me a little bit about the curves, too? Sometimes I get confused with the curves, especially if they go up or down. What does it mean? Okay, so really, when you're looking at the curves, you just have to look at two things. Just two things. One is how steep is the curve? A curve that's flat means that it is slow or not moving at all. A curve that's steep, it means that it's moving quickly. That's pretty much it. So for example, if I take a look at let's say the translate Z right here, this is the forward back motion. We can see that this motion is starting slow. It speeds up. It's become linear. It's not changing any angle. So it's now linear, moving at a fast speed. It starts to speed up a little bit more there before slowing down. So by looking at this, I can see what my curves are doing and understand the speed that they're happening in. As for the up and down, that's the second thing we need to look at. Is the curve going up or is it going down? If we see that change, that means that there's a reversal. There's a change in direction. So for example, if I look at my translate Y, that's the up and down of the hips. I can see that it starts slow, fast, slow, changes direction. So if it's going up, it's now going down or vice versa. And then slow, fast, slow. That's it. Now, how do I know which direction it's going? Just scrub through your timeline. That's it. So I look at my curve. Okay, the curve is going up. The hips are going up. There you go. Now I know that at this angle that I'm looking at, when it's going up with the hips as well, and down is down. And the reason why you don't want to just associate like, oh, translate Y, up always means up, down always means down, is that it changes with your camera angle. So for example, let's take our translate X. From the front view, the translate X, when it's going down here, is going screen left. Okay. That means that now as it goes up, that means the character is going to be going screen right. Aha, I've got it. Except what if I take my camera and move it behind the character? Now it's different. It's changed completely. So you're just looking at it from the view that you're analyzing it in. Okay, in this case, it's going down, going screen right. Okay, now I know exactly what I'm looking at right here. Done. So you're only ever looking at those two things. How fast is it? And is there a change of direction? And you always want to think, is that what I want in this moment? Should it be slowing down and then speeding up? Or should it be fast and then slow? Should it be changing directions in this moment? Why is that happening? That's going to make it so that you can understand those curves. And Noelia, hello! Hope you're doing well. And thanks. I'm glad you like the haircut. It's definitely a lot lighter. One thing I did want to do here before I go too much further is add a little bit of the side to side of the foot. We're not going to get into the super details here because unfortunately, like I said, I am running out of time, but I do want to add some of that. So as the foot comes up here, one thing I want to do is have that foot push off towards the center a little bit more. Usually when we push off of the big toe. That's why we have a big toe. So it's going to roll off the side there. And I'm going to ease that heel raise up as well. So go through there. It's popping a little too much right now. A little too much right there. There we go. Now as it comes off the ground, I'm going to take the foot and bring it in. So it's kind of following that arc inwards. And then as it comes up and around, it's going to go out and around slightly. So right here, it's going to keep going in a little bit, I think. Just round out that motion. I'm going to think of where I want the extreme to be, probably right around here. As it comes in, let's see. Maybe move it up a little bit more. Maybe something like this. Let's see how that feels. So now the foot comes out, around, and then back to the center, right there. And I don't want it to ease in right through here, so I'm just going to break this tangent. That allows me to control each side individually and just get a nice fast in right there. Let's see. Oh, will I color my hair this time? Probably not. The hairdresser that we went to that used to color our hair, she doesn't do it anymore, and we haven't found another one that does really good color. And what in general should your arcs on your arms look from the top view? Whether it's a walk or a run, but keep moving in one line or make it follow an oval. It kind of goes in slightly. For a walk, you're gonna have more in and out. For a run, it's gonna be more linear. It's still gonna have a little bit of in and out, but definitely a lot less. Typically for a run, the more side to side motion you have, the less running you're doing. To have a good efficient run, your motion is going to be quite controlled and everything pushing forward. Okay. So as the foot comes up through here, I want to push the rotate Y of the foot a little bit. Yeah. So a little bit of rotate Y there. Essentially have the foot kind of, it's pushing off here, and then as it comes around, we get that little bit of drag right through there. Just a little bit. Maybe that's a little too much. Okay. Definitely want to make sure that the feet don't slam into each other here. Now, part of that is because this foot needs to go out. So actually, let's tweak this a little bit and bring that foot further out. So something more like that. I don't want to go too far, but I especially don't want her to slam her feet into her own feet. That would kind of defeat the whole purpose of running. Defeat. Okay. Something like that. So you can see how I can just start building in this overlapping motion right through here and this kind of curvature very quickly once I'm in splines and just kind of roughing it in. So I can do that. Now on the contact right here, on the very contact frame, I'm actually going to change it. The reason being that when you contact, you're not contacting flat. This foot is kind of flat right now. It should be contacting on the ball of the foot. So I'm going to push that a little bit right there. I'm also going to have it contact on the outside edge of the foot. I'm also going to take the toe swivel and let's see, do I want to do, no, ball swivel right here and have it contact a little straighter. And I'll have to change the pose before the contact here. So we get the contact kind of feeling like this. The frame after the contact, we get that flattening. I'm going to use the ball swivel to bring the heel out a little bit more so we get that roll. Keep going with it. So you feel how that heel is rolling in. And then keep pushing that through right there. And see how it rolls that ankle now? This is one of my favorite things to do in animation, is these little details. Now instead of the foot just kind of hit and then wait, and off the ground, we're continuing that motion. We're creating this nice organic feeling to the entire thing. So yeah, I love this kind of stuff. Now here, the reason this pose is not working is that the ankle is not lining up correctly. And for some reason, it looks like I've got an offset in my curves, which is what's causing this. So if ever you notice this, like frame 16, ankle looks good. Frame 31, or sorry, 32, something's off. Something with your first and last poses are probably not lining up. Yeah, you can see it here. See how some of these curves are going down? Something has been offset. So you just need to take frame 1, copy it to frame 17, the last frame. Now everything's good. But you see how now that ankle and that foot contact, it just feels better, feels stronger. I do want to change my translate Y. It's really bothering me. So let's do the hips first, and then I'll adjust the feet to match. So what I'm going to do is I find that my down poses are fine. I'm just going to take the whole thing here and use the region tool in Maya right there. You can find it in the graph editor. And then I can just scale it down and lower it. That feels better. Doesn't feel so bouncy. I feel like my translate X is also a little too high on the hips. So I'm going to scale that down. That's feeling better. My rotate Z on the hips is also a little off. It's popping down too fast right here. Or did I say rotate X? Rotate Z. Needs to hold just a little bit more so that the hips have a chance to drive forward and then come up. Okay. Something a little bit more like that. Yeah, needs more work, but we're getting there. So I've got that one foot much better. If we look at it from the front view, you see how you don't really see it, but you can kind of feel that there's a little bit more weight to it. It's got that nice roll in there, whereas the other foot just lands and then glues in place and freezes completely. For a few frames, it's got what we call pixel death, which is where everything just stops. So I want to avoid that. There we go. Now I can quickly try to add that foot motion in this contact here. So once again, on the contact pose, you would just make sure the character is landing on the ball of their feet. Offset it to the side, the outer edge, like that. Very next frame, it flattens out. And then we can use the ball twist here. Let's see, which control? This one? Yeah, ball twist, or swivel, I should say. And just add some of that in there. And let's ease that translate Z right here a little bit too. There you go. You can see it doesn't take long to add in, but it'll make a big difference. If I wanted to feel snappier, then I would just reduce how much offset there is here. Flatten it out a little bit more. The more you have, the lighter the character is going to feel. The less you have, and the more you go towards just a straight flat pose, it'll feel like they're stomping a little bit more. There we go. Now I just need to add the translate X in here. So right here, this is fine. Next pose, it's going to start to come in. For going back out. Go out a little bit more here. Not too far. And coming back in. And I'm just cleaning up my cycle there. So something more like that. And now we've got the arcs of the feet. Are they perfect? No. I'm doing it very roughly and quickly. But it gets us something that's a little bit more dynamic than what we had before. Now I do have to watch the angle of the foot here. Something feels broken. Right through here. The ankle needs, yeah, rotate more this way. Yeah, there we go. And then right here, what's going on? Let's just get rid of those keys. There was this weird like pop there. I didn't like, so I'm just deleting the keys in that section. And then I'm going to try and just re-key it. Yeah, that's better. There we go. If ever you're noticing like weird keys for some reason, just get rid of them. There we go. Now there's definitely some stuff I would change on the feet right now, but that's more polishy elements that we can get to another time. But already we're starting to get those feet quite a bit more polished. Now I saw some questions here. Do you think it's a bad thing doing a lot of play blast while you're animating? No. Don't get to the point of play blasting for every single change though. Doing a lot of play blast is good because you want to make sure that you're not breaking something. But you want to make sure that you're doing them at good milestones and not like, oh, I changed the rotation of the foot, let's play blast. Oh, I tweaked the toe, let's play blast. Try to do a bunch of different changes and then play blast. Otherwise, you're just wasting time. What I will typically do is I'll make a checklist of a whole bunch of things I want to fix, go through as much of the list as I can, and then once I feel like I'm either done the list or that anything left on the list requires that I know that something else is fixed, then I'll play blast. And then I'll go back through my list and go, okay, did I fix this? Oops, that one wasn't fixed. That needs to be redone. I just go through my list and animate again. And now I've got a new list of everything I need to fix. And that just kind of keeps you working and keeps you from just small change, play blast, small change, play blast. That's a waste of time. And it's not a bad thing to do. It's just when you have to play blast, it takes time. Even this shot here, if I was to play blast, let's say the side view here, let's say, okay, we're going to play blast. And do I have a timer here? Well, let's just count it out. So we're going to play blast. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Gotta name something. 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000, 10, 1,000, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now I'm reviewing. 18, 19, 20. Reviewing. Okay. Close it off. By this time, I've wasted 30 seconds at minimum. Probably longer than that, especially if it's a long shot. If you do that constantly, let's say it's 30 seconds, you do it 10 times, that's a whole 5 minutes that you've spent doing nothing. And it's not doing nothing because you're still reviewing, but there's a whole process in there. You add that over a day of working, you've spent probably like a good half hour waiting for a play blast. You add that over a week, like hours and hours and hours of time spent waiting for a play blast, especially with long shots where sometimes it takes a minute just for the play blast itself to finish. So the more we can do without play blasting, the better it is. And you can use a playback cache, but the playback cache doesn't work with all rigs. It doesn't work on all scenes, and sometimes you run out of RAM. So it's not something that we can totally rely on, unfortunately. Now, let's see here. What else can I add? I do want to do a quick a tweak on the body here. I'm not going to worry about the arms because that's going to take more time than I have left. But I want to get the body in there, and then we'll do a play blast and see what we've got so far. So for the body here, the big thing is going to be the rotate Y and Z. Rotate X here, that's the forward back. Really, there shouldn't be any. So I'm just going to zero all of this out. Rotate Y, that's the twist. And essentially, as the character goes forward, it's going to ease out here. Move quickly across. And then as they come back, I want to ease that out a little bit before moving quickly again. So let's see. Contact. Contact. So I'm just tweaking my curves, getting the ease ins, ease outs exactly how I want them to be. And once again, as I'm looking at the graph editor, it's really just looking at the reversals. When do I change direction? When is the character going to be twisting this way versus twisting the other way? And how does it speed up, slow down? How much RAM do I have in the animating PC? 32 gigs. which still runs out of RAM when I'm doing certain cache playback shots. Let's see. Do you upload all this to stream to YouTube? I don't upload it to YouTube, but like A to the G mentioned, they're up for... it's not 60 days. I believe it's 30 days because I'm not a... what's the term? A Twitch partner. But I do highlight all the streams afterwards, so then they're up permanently. So, let's see. Yeah, that feels good. There's definitely something in the shoulders that went wrong here. See how they're going up and up and up right there? Something's going wrong there. The rotate Z got tweaked somehow. Those shoulders should just be relaxed the whole time. She got very tense. There we go. Oh, and something's not quite right. See how my first and last poses aren't right? Or aren't the same? I'm seeing that change in the leg. Make sure I copy everything exactly the same. Otherwise, there's going to be a weird offset in the run. And where is that coming from? Oh, I know why. There we go. Perfect. So let's now do the rotate Z of the body. That's going to be the twist. And the twist is going to be pretty violent here, because essentially the twist, as the character is going up here, they are pushing everything. And this is the motion that's going to lead the leg into its stretch and change of direction. So I want this to be very dynamic here. Really push that. Comes through. Once again, push that here. So up, make it a little faster there. If I want to sell more impact, here we have our contact frame. I could push this up even more right there. So essentially what we're going to feel is this kind of compression on this side before the character then pushes up. So contact, down, and then push up. I do want to make sure that's very slight though. Otherwise it's going to look really janky. Okay. That feels good. The arms are definitely... don't look at the arms. The arms are all sorts of wrong. But if I'm just looking at the body, that's not bad. I feel like there's something slightly off with my rotate Y. But it might be the arms causing that. So we've got that. Now the head is very flat and boring. Ugh, not great. We would need to tweak that a little bit. Now for the head, it's really just, it either counters or follows the body sympathetically. So really what I could do is take my rotate Z here, and I'm going to simplify this just for the sake of the demo. So just clean that up. I can take this now, and I'm just going to copy that curve, go to my head curve right here, rotate Z. Let's just get rid of everything on there. and I'm just going to paste my curve. And now the head is just going to be doing what the body does. So I'm just going to take this curve now and then scale it and flip it. So I'm scaling by a value of -1. And I'm just going to scale a whole curve down so the head is very subtle. And there we go. We've got that counter motion of the head. Now it's not going to be perfectly in sync like this, and I would want to clean it up a little bit more, soften it out. But this gives us the head motion. And you can see that was pretty quick. I could even then offset it if I wanted to do more of a layered style. I can offset that just so it doesn't match exactly. How do you scale the curve all at once? In the graph editor, you go to Edit, Scale, right here. And in the options, you make sure your value is set to -1. That'll flip the curve upside down. So like that. And then I want it to be a little bit more connected to the body. With that, I'm going to take my rotate Y of the chest, copy that, go back to my head, rotate Y. Once again, don't need any of these keys. And I'm just going to paste them on here. And the head's going to go crazy now, side to side. I just need to scale this down here. Let's go to our most extreme point. Right around here. That's too much. Probably somewhere around there. I'm going to offset it maybe 2 frames. Maybe 1 frame. There we go. So now we've got that extra little bit of motion in the head. And from there, this may be the most popular animation streamers. Have you ever thought of making an animation only Twitch team? I have, but I don't have time to properly do Twitch, if that makes sense. It is one of the biggest things I wish I had more time for. Is I essentially just stream, and then once the stream ends, I never check any analytics. I never do anything like that. I'm very bad at doing the whole business side of things. I just don't have time, unfortunately, which really sucks because I do love doing this kind of stuff. So for the head rotate X, I want to add in a little bit of overlap, because if you look at it from the side view, see how the head is just like horribly boring? To do that, I'm going to take the up and down of the body. So that's the translate Y. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste it on the rotate X of the head. Edit, paste. Now it's going to be way too big here. See how the character is just doing that now? I'm going to take that and just offset it. And I might have to flip it. We'll see. So now, by offsetting it like this, the character is leading with their head. They're doing this. I could have that. Or I could offset it the other way. And now we've got overlap right there in the head. Now it's definitely way too much. So I'm just going to tone this down. And there we go. Now the head, instead of just being this horribly boring, super still thing, we have a head that actually has motion. Yay! That's much better. Now it's a little too much. I would tone it down a little bit more. I feel like the body's also kind of boring right now. So I would want to add a little squash and stretch to the body. Let's do that super quick. I'm technically over time. I should take a break here. But I'm going to take again my translate Y of the body, the up and down. I'm I'm going to copy that. I'm going to take my upper IK control. I was animating the spine with IK spine. I'm going to take the translate Y of that and paste in the up and down of the body. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to make the character really bouncy and stretchy. That's not right. What I want, though, is to then offset this just a little bit. Wrong direction. Like that. So that as the character runs, and you can see on the landing here, they have that little bit of squash to the body. So run, squash, then stretch, and then squash, stretch, squash. So it makes it feel more dynamic. Now, the big thing that's going to happen is it's going to be way too much. So I'm just going to scale this down, and it's going to be tiny. This is one of those things that you just want to feel more than you see. If you start seeing it, the spine is going to look weird. It's going to look like the spine is made out of jello. But what we want is just to feel that little bit of squishiness in here. See how suddenly the body, it's not much, but it doesn't feel so stiff. There's other things that I would want to add in here. A little bit of rotate X, a little bit more overlap and kind of rotation in the body. But for at least now, it's doing something and making that feel much more alive right through there. So let's tone it down a little bit more. Okay. So with that, there's so many things still wrong with it at this point. It's still like a lot of it is just polish. So it's nothing that's like horribly terrible, but it's still definitely lacking appeal in a lot of ways. And we can do that. We can push that by essentially exaggerating certain things, pushing our spacing in certain areas. The rotate Z of the hips is not quite right now. But for now, let's say we're in a good spot. And I want to now compare what I had before and after, as well as just play blast this to see how is it looking. It's always good to play blast your shots every once in a while. Once again, don't overplay blast where you're doing it every single change that you do, but we do want to do it enough that we're not caught unawares by something. So let's frame this up here. Okay. Yeah, there's a little too much side to side in the head right now. Yeah. Oops, I didn't want to close that. Oops. Okay. So, with that, let me play blast. So I'm going to play blast again. This is going to be front. So this is now just going to be, instead of first spline pass, this is second spline pass. Front, play blast. So many things I want to tweak. And then we've got our side view here. So this is second, oops, spline, side. Okay. And I'll get rid of number 6 here. Don't need that. So let's compare, and hopefully it'll look better. We'll see. So our first spline pass here, this was when we had just put in our key poses, and you can see that the up and down is not working quite correctly. The head is super stiff. We're missing a lot of the rotations, and the feet feel very short because we don't have the extension frames yet. From the front view, the character is kind of feeling a little wobbly and just kind of like static. The feet feel very linear. It's not terrible, but it is lacking a lot of weight. Now let's hope it gets better here. We'll see. So for the side view now, the character's a little lower. We've got that head motion. I feel like maybe I toned down the translate Y of the hips a little too much, so I could push that back up a little bit more. But the feet, we're starting to get those extensions. The main issue now with the feet is that they are not holding enough. They're not holding their extremes, which means that essentially we're just seeing this very uniform cycle with the character. And what we instead want is to feel the extremes, the forward and back position. So instead of just doing this, we're doing this, hold, this, hold, this, hold. That makes a run so much more dynamic. From the front view, this is feeling much better. We're starting to feel a bigger sense of weight. We feel the character pushing themselves forward. The feet have a much more dynamic range to them in their motion. Once again, though, we want to hold those poses. The feet right now are feeling very linear because essentially, as they're coming down, it's just going down, 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 hit. And we would want to hold at the peak, swoop in, hold, hit down. So that's going to help a lot. The hips right now aren't quite feeling connected to the leg motions. So this is what's making us lose the sense of weight. So what I would want to do here is start offsetting my hip motion just a little bit to connect them into the foot contacts and really get that sense of weight hitting into the ground, as well as pushing up and then leading through the ground. The overall chest motion is feeling not bad. The arms, they're nothing right now. They need a whole bunch of work. And then the head, there's a little too much side to side. The character is doing this a little too much, so I would tone that down. But overall, we're in a not bad position. So at this point, it's really just polish. Now, just to kind of show an example of foot motions when you do get that the holds in there. Let's see. I have to find the clip here. So this was an animation test I did for a run using the Kayla rig. And this is a different type of run. But you can see here how this run, the legs feel dynamic. So let's actually compare. This run, look at the legs. See how they just feel mechanical. It's just like moving, 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 moving. This one, there's a rhythm to it. It's very slight, but do you feel the difference? The main reason that's happening is as the character is running here, look at how long the feet hold on the extremes right here. So it kicks back, it moves very fast, hold, 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 then moves forward, hold, 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 hold. So we are holding the extremes, not freezing them in place and not moving them, just favoring those. So going back to this one, if we go up here, the foot is already starting to move forward right away. Forward, forward, forward. It goes up, forward, forward, forward. We're not holding those extremes. And the other character does feel like they're running faster. It's a faster run. I believe this one was 6 frames per step. And then from the front view, do I have the front here? Is very similar. So trying to get those arcs in, all of that. Oh, this girl looks faster. Yeah, in certain ways. The arms definitely make her feel slower. So you'll notice here, because the arms are moving very even back and forth, we haven't pushed any spacing whatsoever. Just look at the arms alone. See how slow they feel, especially if you just watch the elbow? Even though the legs might be moving quite a bit and seem like they're moving fast, the elbows are making her feel slower than she actually is. With this one, watch the arms. See how as they move through the middle, it's fast? It's actually helping to make the entire run, if we look at the arms, feel more dynamic. So by pushing those, or let me put it this way, if we're not careful how we push our spacing on things, we can accidentally make a run that's supposed to be fast feel slower, or vice versa, a run that's supposed to be slow feel faster, and create this kind of misalignment. And in this one right here, that's what we're seeing, is that misalignment between the arms and the legs. So we need to definitely do a big pass on the arms. I feel like I'm also rotating the chest too much. I need to tone that down. Let's see. Oh yeah, the front view for this one here. This we've got some nice side to side. So yeah. So that's pretty much runs. I wish I could kind of finish up the other one, but I do have to get going pretty soon. One thing I did want to point out is that we've been animating this run for, what is it? Like 3.5 hours ish. Now we did analyze reference for about I think it was less than an hour. So this run so far has taken about 3 hours so far, roughly 2 to 3 hours. Once you get used to this, it doesn't take long. This run here that I did, which is not complete, it needs more refining. I think I did this in an hour and a half. So once you get the mechanics in there and you know what you're doing, animating walks, you do get faster and faster and faster. Now, when you're first starting animating, do not focus on speed. I've mentioned this many, many times before, and I'm going to mention it again because it's very important. Do not focus on making yourself faster by just moving faster and trying to rush through your animations. Instead, try to improve your speed by understanding what you're doing. Understand how to look at your graph editor. Understand what the curves mean. Understand what the mechanics are. Those are going to be what make you a faster animator in the end. If you're just trying to speed up and just be fast, what you're going to end up doing is making mistakes, which is going to take more time in the end. So never rush things. Instead, focus on understanding things.